everyone. My name is Esther and I will be, well, your expert today. I'm really happy to be here and to be participating in this experience, in this project. So I'm really happy to be here and not only of being part of this project, but also to see that mental health issues are, stopping being a taboo as they have been for many years, both in academia, but also in the labor market work environment in general. So I'm really happy to be part of this and to be able to kind of have the opportunity to talk to you about some issues that I hope are relevant. So I will be talking about self-awareness and personal growth, where I will be in particular focusing on the idea of change, right? Uncertainty and change. So in the spirit of this, I have prepared a very short, I'm not sure, this is not moving, okay. A very short introduction of myself, because I think I am a walking representation of change, right? I am actually a translator. I did my bachelor's degree in translation interpreting. And then I moved to become a teacher in the UK for a year. Then I had my first life transition, let's say transition instead of crisis. And I worked as a tour guide, then as a language teacher again, as you can see, in different countries. And then I started my Erasmus Mundus Masters, through which, as you know, I had to move again across different countries. And then as a consultant in Kenya. A second life transition, and then afterwards I engaged into a PhD. So I finished that in 2018. I became a doctor in social anthropology, whatever that means. And again, another life transition that took me to Mexico. And for the past couple of years, I moved a little bit outside academia, and I'm working now full-time, both as a research consultant and also as a coach across Mexico and Germany most of the time. So yeah, as I put here, life is in the transition. So I will encourage every one of you to not be afraid and just jump for the unknown. So the aim of this week will be to untangle some concepts that might look very similar, but they are a bit different. So they are self-awareness, self-esteem, and self-care. In doing so, we will look at what happens when we don't take good care of ourselves, or our self-esteem levels are really low, and it's when we start engaging in some and a variety of self-sabotaging behaviors, including the imposter syndrome, as we will see. Maybe some of you are already familiar with that idea. And then on the second part, we will look at personal growth. Of course, personal growth can be seen from different perspectives, but I thought really important but also conflictive part is embracing change, right? And uncertainty, which is with the COVID and everything became our everyday bread and butter, right? But I think it's part of life in general. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit what I'm going to be talking about. Well, here's a bit the order of things, which is what I just mentioned. So a very basic definition, self-awareness refers to the ability that everybody has or not has, very well developed, to focus on ourselves and how our thoughts affect our emotions, which at the same time affect the way we act to others or to ourselves. So I would like to put this into practice with a very funny example. Well, I hope you find it funny. So here is I would like to talk to you about someone, let's call him John, who is a really big fan of Barbie. So John one day asks his classmates if they want to go with him to watch Barbie. Some say they don't like that kind of movie, but some others laugh at him, not at him, they laugh, they roll their eyes, and they say that that's too commercial a movie for them. So after this reaction from the others, John immediately thinks that he's stupid for liking that kind of movie. And now his classmates will also think the same, right? That he's stupid. So he also continues to think that they will never invite him to do anything at all. And his thoughts go on into this circle as to tell to himself that he will be forever alone. Now, this train of thoughts brings him to feel very sad and very stupid, on which he reacts in this way. Instead of going to the movies, he goes home, cries, doesn't watch Barbie, and drinks a whole bottle of wine on himself in order to fall asleep fast and not to think about the situation. Now, what just happened here can be represented through this very simple graphic, right? So it's really interesting to see how our thoughts normally affect both our actions and our emotions. In the case that I just introduced to you, this thought of what others are thinking, so this mind reading ability, right, that we all think to have sometimes, makes him feel in a certain way, in this case, sad, stupid, silly, whatever, which leads to this reaction of, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to stay at home and not do anything, drink a bottle of wine, I'm a loser, da da da, right? Which probably at the next day will trigger additional thoughts and additional feelings, because first he will have a hangover, so he will have maybe not so clear thoughts, and at the same time he will feel really bad at himself for having drunk a whole bottle of wine. So this is a little bit what we will be. So now in today's webinar, I'm kind of giving you the theory, right? In the workshops, we will work on particular examples on this, and we'll actually ask you to think of specific situations in which you have, or maybe you're not so aware, but we will try to become aware of this train of thoughts. So a way to go about this is it's called reframing your thoughts, right? And so that's basically, it starts with being aware of the situation. So here I gave you also a very funny example. My girlfriend has not called me today, not even a WhatsApp. She must be having fun with her friends and forgotten about me. It makes me mad. She's so selfish. Let me download Tinder, right? So this is some sad boyfriend thinking that, well, my girlfriend, you know, she's totally forgotten about me. So what to do under these circumstances? How to reframe your thoughts, right? So there are many ways to go about it. In the webinar today, I would just like to point out to a very interesting author that I recommend to all of you to have a look at her book. Maybe you know her before. Her name is Katie Byron, and the book is Loving What Is. It's a very interesting book. I mean, it's really long and sometimes complex, but in general, I think in a nutshell, it encourages you to go through four basic questions. So when you come into a thought like this, right, which is maybe a little bit irrational because, well, who knows what has happened to the girlfriend of this person, right? The first question to ask yourself would be, is that true? Probably most of us would say, yes, it's true, because I know. But then you really ask yourself, can you absolutely know that it is true? And then you would probably start to think, well, maybe, I don't know, she might have had an accident, she might be working, she might be studying, she might have lost her phone, I don't know. There are many possibilities, right? So that would probably start to make us feel less stressed about it. Then the third question is to think about how do you react, or what happens when you believe that thought, so this initial thought, right? So what's your normal reaction? Well, in this case, he was to download Tinder. Who knows if he would have gone on a date or not, but probably not the best solution, right? Especially for a situation that is triggering in us an emotion based on a uncertainty, right? Just based on a thought that is a little bit irrational. And the final question is to ask yourself, who would you be without that thought, right? So if you would be able to say, okay, let me think that maybe she lost her phone, or maybe something happened to her, the reaction would be completely different as to, let me go and download Tinder. So this being said, I will move to another important concept in this webinar, and also in the whole, I think, yeah, during the whole week, which is self-esteem. Self-esteem basically refers to it's also, you also hear about self-esteem as referred to as self-worth or self-regard or self-respect. So all more or less synonyms, right? I mean, we won't go into the linguistics of it, so just let's assume that it's the same. And it refers to the belief and confidence in our own ability, worth, and value. So it's based mostly on our opinion, or our own opinions and beliefs about ourselves, which is why it's very, very difficult to change, right? It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And what it requires, it's a lot of, I would say, self-awareness activity. I'm going to move this here because it's kind of disturbing the thing. I hope it's better here positioned. I wanted to compile some factors that might affect our self-esteem, right? So this feeling of believing in ourselves or believing in our own attitudes and capabilities, right? So first of all, it's the illness, right? I don't know if you have ever experienced some type of illness or temporary disability, like, I don't know, breaking your leg, for example. It happened to me once, and I have to say I felt really, really low. Like I thought I was the most useless person on earth. I couldn't do anything. It disrupted my physical mobility, my life, right? In the way that I had been living my life till then. So that made me really realize of how something as stupid, right, as breaking your leg can actually undermine your sense of confidence in yourself and what you can do and cannot do. Because at the end of the day, also we're used to do things in a certain way, right? So I was used to go to I remember at that time I was in high school, so I would go walking. Well, I couldn't walk anymore. So my life was suddenly like, oh my God, what am I going to do? There were so many other options that I just couldn't think of, right? But that situation made me feel really low. So I'm just talking here about breaking your leg, but you can go through really serious illnesses that get you, maybe in bed or not being able to be fully yourself for a long time, which obviously undermines your self-esteem. Then there are issues of racism and discrimination based on multiple aspects. So not only race, but also gender, for example, or ethnic group. I don't know, when you are maybe living in a society that tells you that if you're a woman or if you're black or if you're a gypsy or if you're from whatever group, you are less good than the majority. It is quite normal for us to sort of integrate that thought into who we are and to really think we are not able to do many things without really questioning whether we are or not. And this in the long run is really undermining our self-esteem or our belief in ourselves and our own capabilities. This one I would like to highlight especially because it's something that I'm seeing more and more in people. Probably it's been always there, but I think nowadays it's just more visible, right? With LinkedIn and these things, people sharing their experiences of how frustrated they are when they become unemployed and they are not able to find another job, right? And well, I would say the trigger here is like not so much maybe the fact of being unemployed, which of course it's not good, but the fact of receiving rejection after rejection after rejection, right? When someone tells you, be it at work or in terms of relationships or whatever it is, like you're not good enough, because that's basically the message of an employer, right? When they tell you, we don't want you, we want someone else who is better than you. This is the wording sometimes they use. It is kind of easy to fall into this feeling of like, okay, I really suck. Nobody wants me. I'm not good. I don't know how to do anything. And then we easily fall into this loop of I'm not good, right? And then, sorry, there's a typo here, unemployment. And then finally, there would be the old age and disability, right? I would like also to highlight here the old age in the sense that, well, in a way, it's related to the illness before, and I'm not saying that being old is an illness, but it somehow changes a little bit our maybe physical capabilities to do certain things that we used to do when we were younger. Also, the fact of being told that you reached 65 or 67 or whichever retirement age you're in, you cannot work anymore, might make you feel as a really useless person. So that sort of continues to undermine your self-esteem. And in fact, it is quite a thing, right? Depression levels in older people, it's very common. And it's really a combination of all these factors. And then another final factor that I wanted to point out here, it's genetics, right? But just as a disclaimer, genetics has been found to maybe have some influence in terms of your personality or how you are built, let's say, how you are wired. But when it comes to having lower or higher self-esteem, it's more these other factors that I mentioned before, not so much as genetic. Self-esteem looks like? Well, it has many different phases, I would say. Here, I just wanted to put a few examples. Having a healthy self-esteem means that you are aware of your own needs and you're not afraid to share them with others, right? Your needs in every possible way, be it emotionally, at work, with your family. I need this, I want to do this, or I can't do that for tomorrow, for example, in a work environment. Acknowledging that your needs are important, or at least as important as the other person, right? So you are not below the other, you're just equal as the others. Acknowledging that you are allowed to make mistakes. We're human, and making mistakes, it's actually, maybe this could have been also another point in the personal growth, because making mistakes is actually one of the things I would say that makes us learn from ourselves, from life, and to grow. So it's something normal, and it's something that we should allow ourselves to do and forgive ourselves for any mistake that we make. Then when you have a good self-esteem, you know your own limitations and also your skills, right? You feel that you matter to yourself, but to the world. And most importantly, you think and you believe and you know that you deserve good things, right? So what happens when we fail at this exam, no? Let's say, of self-esteem and self-awareness? Well, not very good things. There are many things that can happen, right? But I'm just going to touch here on two. First is to engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. Now, I don't know if you have heard this, this idea, like self-sabotaging yourself, and I don't know if you know what it means, but I will just quickly go through it. So when we engage into self-sabotage against ourselves, right? We do or we don't do certain things, blocking our success or preventing us from accomplishing whatever goals we might have, right? So we do some things to just as if we were acting against ourselves in a way, right? But the tricky part of it is that while it can happen consciously, so we know, it can also, and very often it happens unconsciously. And this is often related to the fact that we are not very tuned to our self-awareness, right? So basically, when it happens, it's really a mismatch between our values and our behaviors. So it's, for example, when we are forcing ourselves to do something that we actually deep inside we don't want to do. We tend to engage into self-sabotaging behaviors, meaning just not doing it, right? Maybe procrastinating, etc., etc. So how can you deal with these self-sabotaging behaviors in whichever ways they come? So first is developing more self-awareness. Well, first, and I think the best thing, one of the most important things is to develop self-awareness, to notice any unhelpful patterns of behavior, understand when they happen, and then strengthening the ability to stop them, right? And here I will just give you an example. So let's say I want to get my passport done, but then I keep missing the appointment. So I forget, or I don't go, or I always find something better to do, you know, you name it, whatever. So then in this situation, it would be relevant to ask yourself, why do I really want the passport, right? Because if I really want it, I would just make an appointment and go, right? Why do I feel when I think of going to have a passport done? What's the feeling that I get? Because normally when we are doing something that is somehow against our deep values, we don't feel right about it. Either we feel lazy or we feel like suddenly we have this like the feeling of stress or nervousness in our stomach. So listen to your body, right? And pay attention to yourself when you are not doing these things. What is it that you are feeling? Not what you're thinking, what you are feeling. And then also, what are you gaining by postponing it? Because for sure you're gaining something, right? It's like people who don't go to the gym and they still have bought everything, but they still not go. And probably you gain, well, I don't know, maybe you watch more Netflix. That's what you really like, but you know, you don't want to tell that to yourself because it's not a good thing. Well, not that it's not a good thing to watch Netflix, but just neglecting your physical health. You name it. This is just an example to get you thinking on why you keep on postponing certain things, which can be related to procrastination, right? Which is a very common term nowadays. Another issue that can emerge with these self-sabotaging behaviors is the so-called imposter syndrome. So I don't know if you have ever felt like maybe you're not as competent or as good or as intelligent as others might think, especially amongst your peers. And that what's worse, sooner or later, people will find out and then everybody will know that you're an imposter, right? So this is little bit what it is about. Is this condition of feeling anxious or inadequate internally, even though on the eyes of the other people around you, you might be performing very well. So while objectively you might be very good, for yourself, you're not really you're just a fraud, right? You're kind of cheating everyone. So it's like you don't belong to whatever environment you're in. Factors that might make us feel like imposters, right? By the way, I just wanted to highlight that it's not like a mental illness or anything like this, right? Well, at least it has not been recognized as such yet. It's just like a concept that is used to sort of like define this type of feeling of like I'm not good enough, right? And this normally applies in the work environment, but it can apply to other work or studying environment. I have seen it very often in the academic field, right? Colleagues who were brilliant, really thinking of themselves like they are not good enough, or having an article published and you telling them, oh, you did really well, you know, and then they telling, oh, you know, I couldn't have done it without the help of my supervisor. So is this constant undermining your abilities? And some of the reasons I mentioned here might be more, but I just mentioned a few of them, is the family environment. So growing up with family parents who are over like want you to overachieve, like you go home with a 9 and they tell you, oh, what, you didn't get a 10? This kind of thing, right, might really push you to always want to be the best, which is impossible, right? There's I mean, it's really unlikely that this happens in all areas of your life. Then there is the social pressure, and this applies specifically to some areas, right? And I would touch on academia because it's the field that, you know, I have experienced the most, I would say, but also it might relate more to some of you as being master students. And it's like, yeah, well, you need to publish, or you need to write more, or to get an extra essay or whatever, right? And when you're in academia, it's the writing, publish, 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 publish. Then there is the sense of belonging, is what I just said before, like when you don't feel that you're good enough, or that you maybe are part of a group, let's say for example, I remember doing my master's, the Erasmus Mundus Masters. We had an activity once in which we were asked to talk about our background, and for me, well, I come from a working class environment, so for me that was something actually that I saw as a positive thing, because I thought, okay, I got a grant and I'm here, right? But some people mentioned how they thought it was very brave to acknowledge that, because you are outside of the traditional academic group, right? So if you are really feeling insecure about that, it's really the perfect recipe to undermine your self-esteem and then start into this feeling of being an imposter. Then there's personality aspect, as I mentioned before. The genetics do play a part, unfortunately, and this wanting to be a high achiever. In fact, many people who experience imposter syndrome are really, really good people, hardworking, really brilliant, but unfortunately, they are not always aware of this. So how to deal with this whole, bunch of issues, right? To increase our self-esteem, to be more self-aware. Again, there are many ways. I will here just mention a few. But before, I would like to look into what self-care and self-love are, because, well, I think first of all, it's a funny definition, but also it's important to really understand before moving on. So self-care, when looking up at the dictionary, I found it was really funny. It's the practice of caring for yourself when you're ill, or to stop yourself from becoming ill. And to me, this was really like, it's really something that we do when it comes especially to physical health, right? When it's raining and cold, you go out with an umbrella, you go out prepared with a warm clothes, or when you start to feel sick, you maybe stay at home or you drink warm teas. But what happens do we take that much care of our mental health? I'm not sure. And then related to self-care is the idea of self-love, which is the proper regard for and attention to your own happiness and well-being. So here I would say, let me just move this a little bit. We can say self-love is really a combination of self-awareness, self-esteem, and self-care, right? When you put this all together, you have self-love, right? We will work on this in the workshop with more detail, but here I just wanted to highlight the main concepts, right? For you to have them in mind. Here, I just wanted to point out some ways, or I'm not sure if advice or tips on how to take care of yourself. So a very important one is to practice saying no, right? We are often prone to say yes, to commit to many things, and it's really not doable, right? And sometimes we say yes to people without taking care of our own needs. I might need to be at home alone watching a movie to be able to relax. But instead, I keep on saying yes to this friend, to do this thing, or to this work, whatever. And so taking time off my needs. Another way, which you might find funny, is to say positive things to yourself. Now, you can do this in your mind, which is what most people do when they do it. But research shows that looking at yourself in the mirror, smiling and telling you nice things actually has an impact on the way our brains work. And it actually makes us feel better chemically in the body processes, let's say. So maybe you don't really notice, and you might feel stupid at first, but apparently it does help. Another thing that I like to recommend people is would you tell this to your best friend, really? When you're telling yourself, I'm so stupid, I did wrong, I didn't get a 10, would you tell this to your best friend? If he comes and tells you, I got a 9 out of 10 in the essay, I'm sure you would tell them you did great. Even if they tell you, I just passed, I'm sure you would tell them, you passed, be happy. But what happens when it happens to yourself? That's a different story, right? Then a very destructive sort of a habit that we have when it comes to self-care and, well, to undermine our self-esteem, I would say, is to compare ourselves to others, right? And this can be done by comparing ourselves to our peers, like in real life, but also in the virtual life, right? And especially when you spend a lot of time on social media, it can really have an impact on how you feel about yourself, because, well, what people post are normally nice things, right? So it's inevitable to think, okay, I will never be able to do that, or she's so lucky, or he's so lucky. So it's really a bad way to treat yourself in a way. Another way, celebrate your successes. However small your success is, it can be anything, try to celebrate it somehow. This is important to mark an important moment, let's say, right? And when I mean celebrate, I don't mean, throwing a party like the picture here, but you can just go and buy your favorite ice cream, or, I don't know, watch a movie that you want, go to the cinema, things like this. They really help us kind of have this feeling of reward, right, for something good that we've done. And then accepting compliments, right? It might seem simple, but it's something that many of us, especially people with low self-esteem, do not really do. So now we move quickly to the second sort of part of the work of the webinar, which is dealing with personal growth. Now, what do we mean when we talk about personal growth? So personal growth, it's really a combination of multiple factors. So here there are achieving your goals, learning new skills, could be something, having a vision of the future, developing in whichever way you want, physical, mental, whatever, being creative, training, everything, right, can improve your personal growth or personal development. But here I wanted to look at it from the perspective of more let's say, internally, right? So I found this definition that I really like, which is looking inwards to ourselves and focusing on the ways in which we can improve ourselves as individuals, right? It not only involves the improvement of our skills, but also knowledge, wisdom, habits, behavior, personal qualities, you name it. And it's really not just about learning new things, but really applying them in our lives in order to grow, right? Because how many self-help books have you read in your life? Plenty, right? I guess maybe not all of you, but some of you. But then how much of the advice these books provide have you tried to implement into your life? I mean, when I say try to implement, I mean in a serious and constant manner, no, not just try it one day. No, it doesn't work, out of my list. So one thing is learning, and one thing is bringing it into your life. Here, very quickly, I wanted to propose this sort of like it's a theory. We will talk. There's a lot of information about this in the handout that I will pass around. But here, just to give you a little bit of a summary, no. So Maslow talked about this sort of pyramid of needs, if you like, that he classified like in 5, right? But 4 of them belong to these deficiency needs, and then there is only one going into these growth needs. So when it comes to deficiency needs, they are, you can think of them as basic needs for survival, right? So it's psychological needs, physiological needs such as having food, water, sleeping, reproducing, etc., etc. Then safety needs, like having a job, having resources, being able to access a doctor, and so on and so forth. Love and belonging to family, relationship, having friends, whatever. The self-esteem, right? Like, and especially here, I like the respect part, the status, and the freedom. I think that's really crucial for self-development and growth. But then the final one, so basically what it says is like, you can live okay with this one, the fourth ones at the bottom, but to really engage into grow and develop as a person, you need to be able to satisfy these first, and then you can start delving into this one, in the self-actualization, as it describes. And then change is one of the main triggers of the last sort of ladder in the pyramid. It's not ladder, but the last step in the pyramid, right? Why? Because change allows us it kind of helps you break these sort of structures that we have in our minds. And then I'm seeing questions, but we will look at them later, right? Now we will just continue till the end, and then we can have a look at them. So, but thank you. It's fun. You can continue to put your questions there, and just later we will look at some of them. So my focus on personal growth, again, it's a really broad topic, but I just decided to focus it down on change and uncertainty. So, and then look at maybe some of the worst enemies, right, of personal growth. So here I put some of them. Having an information overload, and nowadays this is really dangerous, right? Because before, well, I don't know you, but for me, I used to have an encyclopedia, you know, this one's the book one, the old books that you had to go to the library and read, and it was very tedious. So you could have a lot of information, but not in the amount or at the speed that we have nowadays. So, and also there's a lot of contradictory information. There is a lot of pros and cons. I mean, just think of like, I want to buy a TV. Okay, you start looking pros, cons of all the different features that a TV can have, and then you go crazy, basically, right? So it really goes against your well-being, mental well-being. So, and this applies for everything, right? When let's say I want to move to another country, and where should I go? And then you start wondering, well, maybe I want a place that has, I don't know, beach, but I can work and this and that. You will find plenty of opinions as to where to go, where is best, where is not best. And no matter what you choose, there will be information against it. Then forcing yourself to do too much too soon. So sometimes you want to change something. For example, I don't know, I want to start going to the gym. And then in my plan, it's going to be going every day 2 hours. Maybe this is not the best approach because it can feel overwhelming, right? And it's really hard to incorporate change in this super fast and forced way. Then feeling lonely in your journey of change. For example, I don't know, you want to suddenly change your career, and everyone around you would be like, what, are you crazy? And you're such a good, whatever, academic or doctor or psychologist, and then you want to become, I don't know, a dog walker, which I have seen. Yeah, I want to change. What happens? So yeah, having people surrounding you who maybe are not sharing your goals might be really discouraging. Constantly questioning what is the best next step. I mean, that's also can be called procrastination. Is really a very good way to stop growth because of out of paralysis, right? If you like, because you don't move, right? It's very hard to just to know whether the next step is good or bad, or it will be better for us or not good for us. So we might engage into this first point of wanting to get as much information as possible, which again can really block us from moving on. And then the fear of the unknown and the resistance to change. And here at this point, I wanted to really go a little bit on explaining why we are in general, right, all human beings, resistant to change. It is really a nice mechanism, I mean, a nice protection mechanism that we all have, but at the same time, it really stops us from growing. And it's our brains are wired in this way that the main function is protecting us from destruction, right? From self-destruction. So, so here is a very, well, I found it funny example, like how our brain, right? Feels of danger. Danger in the Paleolithic times could be like a lion running after you, you're gonna die. is not comparable to a danger nowadays, or for example, not being able to meet a deadline, but still the brain, it's like, or moving to another country, not knowing what's going to happen, on any other thing that the brain is considering like, okay, our life might be in danger, not life per se, but because it's like a biological process, right? So it doesn't really make the distinction between a lion and a deadline, or a lion or moving to another country, right? It might seem stupid, but apparently I'm not a biologist or anything, but I've done some research on it, and apparently that's how the brain works. So it will only try to keep us safe, and change could be the opposite of safetiness, in the sense that it's something we don't know. We don't know what's going to come. We don't know what's going to happen. This might be, as I said, changing careers, changing partners, leaving a relationship, for example. How many people do stay in the same relationship, which might be abusive or might not be a good relationship, out of fear of being alone? What will happen if I'm alone, right? Is this feeling of not knowing what's going to happen, which throws us out of the comfort zone. And then it's this, we tend to avoid this type of situations as much as possible. I want to suggest a few steps. We will kind of dissect them in the workshop, but for now, I thought this could be relevant also for the recording, in case you want to go back to it. So here I just propose some steps to follow when you are facing a situation of uncertainty or change and fear, in the sense that, will it be the right decision? I don't know what will happen. So first of all, I always advise to ask yourself, why is it so difficult to make this change or this decision? Really, like, what is at stake? What is it? Which parts are really bothering you? Is it money? Is it being alone? Is it whatever it is, right? Think about it and also write it down. I think writing, it's really important to put these thoughts into more concrete things, right? And that we normally do when writing. Then and a second question would be, what can I lose and what can I win with each of the options that I have, right? And here it's important that you are very honest with yourself, right? Making this list, again, in writing helps a lot. Sometimes you can see really how one list is much bigger than the other, and it's like, okay, this is working, right? So write down which things you can lose, which things you can win, and then in them you can see which are where you are finding your really core values, right? Which are really at the basis of any decision we take in life. Always remember that there is no wrong or right options. They are just options, and they are just decisions. And in fact, it's impossible to know if whatever decision we take was the best one or the worst one, because we will never know how the other decision would have been, right? I mean, if we would have two lives, probably, but not at this stage, no, it's not possible. So whatever the choice, it's the choice, right? So just deal with it. And in a way, you need to think like, it's either I choose something or something, which might be better, worse, I don't know, or I just stay the way I am, right? And this might also really trigger you to move, either in one direction or another. Try not to engage into toxic or obsessive thoughts. This was something that I think Sunika talked about last week, but this is very important when we are facing situations of change. It's really common to start overthinking, right, and ruminating. Will this be right? What can I lose? Da, 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 da. And then it's a never-stopping situation. Something that works, and again, it might sound really stupid, is to say out loud when you find yourself, engaged into this negative way of thinking, right, in loops. Just say out loud, stop, just like that. It does work. Again, some brain mechanism, right, that sort of like blocks you, and it stops you on the tracks, and then it gives you like an opportunity to engage into other things or other thoughts. Try it. What can you lose, right, by trying? And then a final point here, we will look at more in the workshop, is be careful on how much advice and from whom you ask the advice, right? Because sometimes, I mean, again, too much information might not be the best, but also you always remember, people would advise you, will tell their opinion based on their experiences. So if you ask someone who has never left their town, I want to go to China to live, they will think you're crazy, right? Because it's something that they have never considered, that they find as totally, you know, out of their mind, and maybe problematic, maybe dangerous, you name it. So maybe this is not the right person to ask, right? Even if it's our father or mother or best friend. So be careful with this type of engagement. And when working on personal growth and trying to implement something new in your life, sometimes we might really have a lot of ideas but not act on them. So here I just wanted to put like a kind of like a list, if you like, of things you can, steps, let's say, to follow when you want to change something. And it can be something as simple as I want to stop smoking. I don't know. So first ask yourself the question, what is not working in my current situation and what do I want to change? Well, it's not working that actually I smoke so much that I cannot climb a flight of stairs, right? I suffocate. And then I'm getting fat. So then I want to stop smoking because I want to be able to breathe better and to practice sports, right? And then ask the question, what do I want to do instead of smoking? Maybe you want to practice more sports, precisely, right? So it's really finding the links in between what you want or to do or you want to stop doing, and how is this going to trigger in other impacts in your life. Then ask yourself, what skills, tools do you need to do that kind of thing? In this case, smoking, right? Maybe you need to really do a lot of internal mental work, because in the end it's an addiction, right? As to what leads you to smoke, right? What is the trigger of smoking and how can you stop that trigger? And slowly start to work on that. And then set milestones. As I said before, it might not be the best idea for many people. For some people it works, but for many, to just say, from tomorrow on, I'm not smoking anything. Maybe a better approach is to do it slower, to say, well, instead of smoking a package a day, let me just smoke 2 cigarettes a day and go slowly. That really depends on your pace, but it's really something you need to balance. And then create a habit. So if your habit is actually to smoke a cigarette after coffee, then maybe instead of smoking a cigarette, try to eat a chocolate bar. I mean, just a small one, because then it can also be very bad for your blood sugar levels. Just joking, but you see the point, right? Like the scheme of things. To conclude my presentation, I just wanted to make some final remarks before opening the floor for questions. And it's, first of all, I would like to please be careful on, and not careful, but mindful, no? About how you interpret and how you implement all these selves in the presentation and in the workshop this week. What do I mean with this? I'm talking a lot about paying attention to ourselves, paying attention to your needs, paying attention to what you want, what you need, what you can and you cannot do, whether you're admitting that you're good at something or not. Now, sometimes this can be taken to the extreme, as I don't know if you on social media, but well, it's very easy nowadays to kind of read these type of messages of like, if they don't treat you right, drop them. Or if, you know, someone is being mean to you, don't talk to them. Or, you know, I'm better alone. And I would also be careful with this type of understanding of what self-awareness or self-esteem means, because as long as we have to love ourselves, we are humans. We live with other people, right? And minding about for the others is also our responsibility, and is also part of our happiness, right? So this is not to say that we should be selfish, or that we should just not care about our own well-being and care about the well-being of others only, or put the well-being of others first. It's really finding a balance, right? Just that sometimes we tend to forget ourselves. So just be mindful about this, right? Then also avoid self-diagnosing yourselves, and others. Again, a very common thing that I'm seeing lately, or people with whom I work, like in therapy, but also on the internet, it's this, my boyfriend, my ex-partner is a narcissistic, he has a narcissistic disorder. Okay, well, that really, is that true? Or I have depression. Really? Do you have depression? Because sometimes we use these words very, like, in our daily life, but actually it's a very serious thing, having depression or having narcissistic personality disorder. So one thing is maybe being a little bit too full of yourself, one thing is having a disorder, right, in this direction. So again, be mindful with how you feel about yourself and also about others, right? Because this is really, yeah, a bit difficult to navigate in a way. Then practice, practice, and practice again. So I think not only for my this week or the week before, all the presentations you will see during this project, we might tell you lots of interesting things, lots of important things, but it's really up to you to put them into practice, because it doesn't matter how many things you live today with that you find relevant, important, and cool. If you don't put them into practice actively, it's for nothing, right? So there's no need to take everything on board, but just, I mean, I would be super happy if you could pick one or two things of all the things that I've just told and that we will work on and start to really implement them in your life. Yeah, this is also very important, to listen to your body. So sometimes, you know, it's like, oh, I'm depressed. And it's like, okay, yeah, but sometimes it's normal to feel sad, right? If you had a very bad night's sleep, or maybe for us girls, sometimes having your period has an impact on you. It is important to be aware of these things, because in my case, for example, right, when I don't sleep, I really feel like shit on the next day, and I really treat the others like shit. Or when I have, well, in terms of period, right, as well. Some days I feel really angry at the world and I want to kill everybody. So what I do is I tell people, like, look, I'm having one of these days. I know, I feel it. So forgive me if I react a bit over the top, right? And it really helps the way people approach you, but also the way when you answer a bit out of proportions, right? They might think, okay, good. She's having one of those days, right? So as I put here, learn to notice and also to communicate it to those around you. And finally, if you are really experiencing something really serious, and serious, I mean, like you feel you can't cope with it on your own, just go and ask for help. Look for the good therapist that can answer to your needs, because that's also an issue, right? But try to see what kind of need you have and who would be the best therapist for that, and then ask for help. That's the best way to go about it. So yeah, that's all from my side.